Hey people, following that extremely painful defeat against Bayern Munich, where of course in the Europa League, more and more news is surrounding Barcelona. And now the latest news is suggesting that Gavi, who's of course our wonder kid, will maybe leave Barcelona for Liverpool. The news suggests the fact that Liverpool want to trigger the 47 million euro release clause that Gavi has in his contract at the moment. And this would see him exit Barcelona no matter what Barcelona want. Because if you can pay a player's release clause, that means he will leave the club. And the club really has no control over that. And so this is literally what is being looked at by a lot of the big top six clubs. Because the release clause is very low. And Gavi, of course, has so much talent and so much time to improve because he's only 17. Now this would be painful. Very, very painful. Because let's just take a look at Barcelona at the moment. Our squad itself is it's not at a level to compete with the big teams in the world. You have teams like Bayern Munich. You have teams like Liverpool. And all of these clubs have a squad that is capable of competing. For us, we not only have zero world-class players that consistently perform at the moment, but we also don't have players that are like Gavi, who can improve in a significant amount. Because if you take a look at our squad at the moment, we have Ter Stegen, who's going through a heavy downfall. We have Piqué, who is just already late 30s, doesn't have too much time left in the game, and so he will retire soon. We have Alba, same situation. We have Araujo, lots of time to improve. And then in our right back spot, we have Dest, who doesn't really look like having a future at the club. And then in midfield, we have JONG, who is just not looking right and not looking confident at the club. And then we have Gavi, and he's probably one of the only one or two players in our club that has so much time to improve and is willing to actually put the effort to do that. And is actually looking fairly confident. So we have Gavi, and we of course have Pedri. So two players in midfield. And then in attack, we have Fati. He can improve a lot. No, I'm not denying that. Dembele will leave. And then Depay is also very inconsistent. So we really have only three players in the club like Gavi, young, who have lots of potential to improve and actually want to stay at the club. And if we get rid of one of our biggest gems, and not even for good money, 50 million in the current market is just an absolute bargain for any club in the world, because you should not be getting rid of a player for 50 million. That's just an injustice on its own. So I think the fact that this is happening, it's gonna be so painful for Barcelona fans, because unless Gavi signs a new contract and we get one of those ridiculous release clauses like we have for Pedri and Ansu Fati, he could leave for 50 million. A 17-year-old with the world at his feet could leave for that much amount of money. That would be just crazy. And let's be fair, there's a huge possibility that will happen, especially considering the prospect that we're going to be in the Europa League. Now, the next part of just football that we've seen with Barcelona is the fact that in that Bayern game, it was painful to see because there was just no promise. When you play football games, you can play bad. I think that's normal in football. You can also win where you're not convincing. We play bad. We show signs in the league that we can be good. But when it comes to the highest level of opposition, we just show nothing. It seems like once we're 1-0 down against literally any team, that's it. We're not going to get back into this. And this is just the painful reality of Football Club Barcelona. Because once we go 1-0 down, we seem to have no confidence or belief that, yes, we can turn this around. We just seem to be like, this is it. There's no more hope. And that is the problem that we're seeing now. But let's not kid ourselves. We've had this problem for a while now. Of course, if anyone can remember that Roma 3-0, seems like after that 1-0, it just seemed like our whole entire mentality to get back into it was just gone. Same thing against Liverpool. And then obviously against Bayern, it just got worse and worse. And so this seems to be a constant problem in Barcelona. I'm not sure why. It seems like the players themselves know the fact that this team is not going anywhere. And when you're having that problem in terms of belief in yourselves in a club, it could be one of the most dangerous things. Because at least when you have belief and you don't have ability, you can do something on the pitch. You can at least have the effort and show some effort on the pitch. But when you have no belief and your talent is just not able to get shown because you have no confidence, that's a huge problem, not only for the player, but for the clubs in general. And so, on this note, we of course saw the fact that Frankie de Jong, he's also reported to be leaving the club. This would be just, it's kind of expected because any player with ambition at the moment would want to leave Barcelona. Although we're still one of the biggest clubs in the world, if not the biggest, a lot of these players want to go to a club where they know they can be successful in their prime. Not everyone's like Gavi, where they're just 17, they just broke into a team and have so many years left to play football. When you're a player like de Jong, who's almost 25 now, and is really looking to take that next step in football and go to a club where he can actually compete, Barcelona is just not there, because with all these young players that we have, it's going to take us at least 2 or 3 years to get to a stable level. And financially, we can't just go out in the market and invest loads of money, which seems to be the second problem, because if we did have that ability, we could be getting some really good players and get back to the running to win these trophies easily. And this is really another worrying part about Barcelona, because if you look at a lot of other clubs, let's just take Inter Milan, they were at an amazing level 10 years ago, right? So they won the treble, Mourinho was at their helm, and they had some amazing players, Milito, and then amazing goalkeeper, midfield, Snyder, great players. 10 years later, yeah, they're in the Champions League. I'm not going to take that away from them. They did very well to reach that stage. But financially, they were in such a position that they had to sell their 2 star men, in Hakimi and Lukaku. And why did they need to do that? Because they just didn't have the money. And so they had to sell their star men. And although they're in a stable position now, this was the problem with Inter Milan. You could see how in 10 years, they went from a Champions League winning team and a Serie A winning team to a team that is, okay, winning the Serie A. But you realize that it took 10 years to do that. And this is my real problem with Barcelona, because Inter Milan is not the only example. AC Milan is another great example. Arsenal is another good example as well. So all of these teams have problems financially, and it's really caused huge downfall for them. And I think Barcelona, hopefully not, and I'm not saying this is certain, but could be on that same path, because financially we're not in a position to invest loads of money. We are struggling, like a lot. We're struggling in every aspect of our game. We have young players, but they're going to take time, a lot of time to mature. We have old players that we're finding impossible to get rid of. We have players that are just lacking confidence. We have a manager who is, let's be frank here, inexperienced. We have a board that don't have too much money to spend. So in every aspect of our club, we are struggling. So people think that in 2 or 3 years, we're just going to get back to our best. Even Xavi thought that. Xavi said to Laporta, reportedly, that in 1 year, we would be competing with Bayern Munich. Well, if you look at our state of our squad and look at the state of all of our players, that's not possible. I think Coutinho is a perfect a representation of this football club. Great once, and now is just lacking confidence and is not able to do anything. That is Barcelona in a nutshell. The future is worrying for Barcelona, but we do have a few positives in, of course, Gavi, in Pedri, in Fati, Dembele, hopefully if he signs a new contract. But it's still very worrying as a fan, because this is not the first time that a club has been in a situation like this. AC Milan, like I mentioned before, again, what a squad they had. Gattuso, Kaká, Seedorf, Dida, Maldini, Nesta. They had phenomenal players, Van Basten. They had all of these great players. And now they're out of European football altogether. They're struggling financially. And we could be like them. And this is the worrying factor. The only bit of hope I have are in these youngsters, and the fact that we have La Masia, which is still one of the best academies in the world to develop players. And to think the fact that we might actually produce some players from there is very promising. But not every player is going to be like Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, Messi. They're not going to be like that. That was a generation. You're not going to get those generations very often. Same thing with the class of 92. You're not going to get players of Scholes, Neville, Giggs. You're not going to get those players all the time. And this is my problem. Although a lot of people think La Masia will produce great players, which hopefully they do, You're not going to get Messi 2.0. You're not going to get an Iniesta 2.0. You're not going to get players of that level so quickly. And so, unless some miracle happens, and that happens, or at least we're stable and finish top 4 for a few seasons and gain a little bit more financial superiority, then I don't see us really competing with these big clubs anytime soon. And so this is really worrying as a Barcelona fan. But as I say to every Barcelona fan, just stay optimistic. Some clubs have recovered from financial issues pretty quickly. If we sell some of our gems, that, it's going to be painful when we sell them because we know their quality. But if we sell them, get a little bit more structure financially, hopefully get more players like the likes of XAVI and Fati, then maybe things are positive for Barcelona. But the only way we can know if any of these things are going to be possible is through time. And really, time will tell. So this is the first episode of my podcast. Make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching and catch you in the next one.